Last week's CNN presidential debate could go down as one of the worst in history, mostly due to the shocking performance by President Joe Biden. But we have just heard from Donald Trump. He's been caught in a leaked video supplied to the Daily Beast where he revealed what he really thinks about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
What did I do with the debate the other night?
Oh, amazing.
He kicked that old broken down pile of crap.
Yeah.
It's a bad guy. He just quit, you know. He's quitting the race.
Is that right?
Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic.
It's so amazing.
It's just so bad. So
I just can't imagine.
But can you imagine that guy dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce man.
Right.
A very tough guy, and they see him. They probably he can't. But they just announced he's probably quitting.
Good. Very good.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Just keep knocking him out, huh?
He didn't hold back, did he? Let's bring in journalist and commentator Brad Palumbo. Brad, great to be with you again. I can't wait to get your reaction to the debate, but also what Donald Trump's had to say, because he's been pretty quiet up until now.
Well, that's been the smartest thing that he's done, is just sit down and just zip his lip and let them do all the damage to themselves. At the debate, we actually saw remarkably restrained Trump, which aren't two words that you usually put together in a sentence, but he just let Biden have the spotlight, and Biden did so much damage to himself. And this video was really interesting to me, right? Because he almost seems happy either way. On one hand, he's got Biden, who he's currently beating in the polls significantly with a bump after the debate. And on the other hand, if they do swap him out, they have to basically go with Kamala Harris. And she would be an absolute train wreck in her own right.
Absolutely, and we've got a clip of Kamala Harris to play for everyone a little bit later. But let's stick with the debate for now. Joe Biden has admitted that he nearly fell asleep during that debate, and we all saw it, so that's no surprise. But he's now using jet lag as an excuse. Here's his press secretary being questioned about this.
You did get numerous questions yesterday about the president's debate performance. You didn't mention the travel, the jet lag, the foreign trip. So I think you can understand why it was a little bit puzzling to hear the president mentioning that as his explanation for the first time last night. I'm just, can you clarify whether when you took the podium yesterday, did you not know that that was a major
And I want to say
factor?
that is my bad. Definitely part of the explanation of what had occurred. I did know that. I did know that. I did know that. But we were so focused. I was so focused on the cold, and that's what I kind of leaned into and talked about.
My bad. Brad, what do you make of this? You're certainly not helping the fallout.
No, this is, frankly, gaslighting of the highest order. To try to claim, first they tried to blame Biden's disastrous debate performance on a cold that magically wasn't there the next day when he was at a campaign event. And now they're trying to blame jet lag for a trip that he got back from more than a week before the debate. And then he spent that week holed up doing debate prep that only started at 11 a.m. and he took a break for a nap every day in the afternoon. If he still has jet lag, all that while later, after all those naps and those 11 a.m. starts, that's not much of a defense or much of a case that he's up for the job of president, which is probably the most stressful job in the world. So to me, we are just seeing Democrats who are engaging in this gaslighting light their credibility on fire in real time. And it's honestly insulting. Americans aren't stupid. They're not going to have the wool pulled over their eyes this easily. We saw what we saw. It wasn't a cold. It wasn't jet lag. It was the abject state of a president in cognitive decline. And they need to reckon with that reality, not tell us that what we see isn't real.
And let's just recap how bad it was.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Brad, I want to get your take. Was that the key moment that he lost the debate, or one of many?
Yeah, that was the most entertaining but also painful moment of the debate when Trump hit him with that one-liner and said, I don't know what he just said, and I don't think he does either, because I laughed out loud. Trump, love him or hate him, the dude is hilarious. But at first I was laughing, but then I found myself getting deeply depressed. I mean, this dude doesn't know what he just said. He starts rambling about how they beat Medicare. What, you beat a health insurance program for the elderly? What does that even mean? I mean, and this is the guy with the nuclear codes. I mean, how are we supposed to sleep at night knowing that? So at first I laughed out loud at that moment in the debate, but I've heard from many other people who were in rooms full of liberals, full of Democrats, and the rooms just went silent and got very uncomfortable very quickly. And I can understand why. It's tough to watch, and frankly, it's kind of scary to watch too.
It's absolutely scary to watch, and I shared a similar journey where there are moments where myself, along with other colleagues in the office, we were laughing out loud because we couldn't believe it. But then afterwards, there was a bit of rage, a bit of anger that this is the leader of the free world and it's not okay. And it's clearly a medical condition, so it's something we probably even shouldn't be laughing at anymore, and it's really sad. But despite the abysmal debate showing, there are still media outlets appearing to cover for Joe Biden. Look at this headline on The Guardian. It reads, Biden comes out swinging in his first speech after presidential debate with Trump. Are they serious, Brad? They can't be.
They are. Some of them are doubling down. Actually, a surprising number actually have called out the president. Even the New York Times has had several op-eds calling for Biden to drop out, and the editorial board even went so far as to say drop out. But we have seen media. The Associated Press just dropped another absurd article trying to say he was still sharp at 81. They are trying to defend him. They just must hate Trump that much that they're willing to just blatantly lie. They're willing to defend the indefensible. I don't know. As a journalist, I would never debase myself in such a manner just because I hate one politician or like another. I mean, ultimately, your credibility and your integrity is your tools of your trade. And if you light them on fire in service of one election or one politician, you're destroying your own career and your own credibility in the eyes of the public. But what's crazy to me is to try to use this debate, or rather this campaign event that he had the next day as, well, he did great then. He read a teleprompter at a brief speech at a campaign event, but he couldn't go a 90-minute debate with 2 breaks, mind you, without totally losing it and admitting that he almost fell asleep during it. That is not the defense or the get out of jail free card that these people seem to think it is. It's just not.
And if it couldn't get any worse, it's been revealed that Hunter Biden has joined meetings with the president and top aides since his father's return from Camp David on Monday, according to NBC News. Let's look at this.
Hunter Biden has been by his father's side ever since they were at Camp David this weekend as a family, where they had some discussions about the president's potential path forward here and his re-election campaign, and that since he returned from Camp David last evening with his father, we understand that Hunter Biden has even joined some meetings and conversations that have taken place between the president and some of his most senior advisors. It is unusual, according to the people we spoke with, for him to be participating at this level.
And the White House confirmed that Hunter Biden joined advisors to help the president prepare for a speech later that day.
Look, the president, as you know, is very close to his family. This is a holiday week, 4th of July. He spent time with his family, as you all know and reported, at Camp David. Hunter came back with him and walked with him into that meeting, that speech prep, and he ended up spending time with his dad and his family that night. That is basically what happened.
The question, though, would be, is he participating in meetings with senior advisors?
What I can say is that he came back with his dad from Camp David. He walked him into the speech prep, and he was in the room.
Of all the people that Joe Biden could call on, Hunter Biden is who he chooses. Brad, why is he doing this?
I have no idea. It is the worst PR move. It is the most baffling thing imaginable to do in this moment of crisis. Yeah, you know what we got to do? call in the crackhead for career advice for the president of the United States. I mean, Hunter Biden is a hot mess. He's got criminal charges. He's got a drug abuse problem. He's a deadbeat dad. He's not got his own life figured out. So he's not in a position to be giving career advice about the future of our nation or helping the president decide whether to run for re-election or not. It's absurd. Of course, I have nothing against the president seeing his son and spending time in a familial capacity, but to have your son at all, but especially when you have such an irresponsible and criminal son involved in intimate decisions about the presidency in a moment of crisis, I mean, that's not a red flag. That's a bouquet of red flags.
It's such a bad move. And as you said at the start, even the PR angle of this, the optics of it is terrible. But look, not just Hunter Biden, I think we really need to look at Jill Biden. I did a story earlier this week suggesting that she is just as to blame, or she's just as bad as Joe Biden at the moment. The First Lady featured on the cover of Vogue magazine wearing a $10,000 suit where she insisted that Joe Biden will not step aside. Now, look, I'm even seeing left-wing media outlets pick up on this point that Jill Biden is partly responsible for this, and she should be the one tapping her husband on the shoulder saying, look, your time's up, you've done a great job. Some may say, others may not agree with that, but whatever, that it's time for him to let go. Brad, what's your thoughts on Jill?
Look, at this point, the First Lady's enabling elder abuse, and I get that she wants to cling to the spotlight and that this is the most relevant she's ever been. I know anybody human, that like allure of power and attention is going to be there, but your husband is humiliating himself in real time in front of the public and humiliating our country and making us look weak in a time of international conflict and war, and you don't take him aside and say, listen, Joe, we've got to stop. You've got to drop out. If she really was looking out for her husband's best interest, Jill Biden would tell Joe not to run again. She would be counseling him to drop out. And obviously we don't know what she's saying behind closed doors, but based on what she's saying publicly, she is encouraging him to stick in the game. And I think that's really, really disturbing. It's not what you'd expect somebody to do if they have the best interests of their spouse in mind.
Yeah, I think seeing her on the cover of Vogue did her husband no favours. Former Fox News host Tucker Carson claimed on X that Jill Biden's actions have deteriorated relations between the Bidens and the Obamas while trying to revive her husband's campaign. So I'll read you part of the tweet from Tucker Carlson. It says, from an unusually good source, Obama's tweet supporting Joe Biden was disingenuous. In private, Obama is telling people Biden can't win. Brad, what do you make of that?
Yeah, obviously I can't confirm or deny this report from this source, but it wouldn't shock me whatsoever. We just saw two major Democratic governors, Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer of California and Michigan, respectively, come out with almost verbatim tweets today saying, I support the president in his decision to run again. It's like the talking points have gone out from up top. But behind the scenes, I think almost all Democratic politicians and operatives and even media personalities are admitting that something is wrong here. Will they cling to Joe and just decide to stick with him? I actually think so. I do think he will stick it out. I could be wrong, but I think he has a little bit of a God complex. He thinks he's the only one who can beat Trump and save America from what he views as the horrors of a second Trump term. So I think he'll stubbornly cling to it. But no, I'm sure if we could see the group chat with Obama and a bunch of other Democrats right now saying what they really think about Joe Biden, it would be totally different than the PR tweets they've been encouraged by the White House to put out. I don't take a lot of that at face value. Obviously, that's PR speak more than truthful, honest analysis.
Absolutely. Would love to see that group chat as well. Nearly a third of Democrats think that Joe Biden should end his re-election bid after his poor debate performance against Donald Trump, according to a new Reuters and Ipsos poll. We also know that Joe Biden is going to give his first post-debate interview with the ABC. Brad, what can you expect? Are you surprised that he's actually going to front up to the cameras again?
Well, no, because he's got to do something to do damage control on this disaster. But what was interesting is that originally this ABC interview was going to be a cut up, like a package of highlights from an interview edited down. They've now announced they're doing it live, I think as a full hour, just live to tape, like as a special. That's much better because we'll actually get to see him in real time. I was worried they were going to do a PR job for the White House and just make him look good in the edit, because that's what we've seen him do in the past. This president has actually notoriously avoided difficult or at all critical interviews, and heavily favored, one, he's given far fewer interviews, and two, heavily favored extremely friendly softball interviews in controlled settings. So it'll be good to see him again, but I mean, he can't really do any worse, I guess, is the best you could say. But even then, I don't think people will really be reassured just because he does one interview that's okay. I mean, we saw what we saw, and even if he, and this is true for a lot of older people, and again, there's no shame in this. There's no shame in aging. It's just the clinging to power that's the problem. They have better moments and worse moments. So even if this interview captures him in a sharper, more lucid state, that's ultimately not reassuring when you know he's going to still be having days like he had on the debate stage where he can hardly string a sentence together and looks like he barely knows where he is and is struggling to stay awake.
I agree with you. I think the damage has been done. But since the debate, there's been an even bigger focus on VP Kamala Harris. We heard from Donald Trump at the start of the program. He believes he'll be up against her. Let's listen to what she's had to say recently.
No, Taraji. Now, you know I wouldn't do that, especially not to a fellow bison. The real, ain't you? You know. So what's on your mind?
Oh, Madam VP Harris, I'm worried about the election. Women's reproductive rights are on the line. Our Supreme Court is on the line. Our basic freedoms are being tested, Madam VP. I know you've been traveling across the country. What are you hearing?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you, you're right, Taraji. There is so much at stake in this moment. The majority of us believe in freedom and equality. But these extremists, as they say, they're not like us.
It is so cringe. But let's listen to another clip that's been going viral on social media.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know? What can be unburdened by what has been.
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 What we can see, what we believe can be, unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Who we can be unburdened by who we have been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Where we can be unburdened by where we have been and unburdened by where we are right now.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Why is she saying that, Brad? What?
I've probably heard her say that 1,000 times at this point. I still have no idea what it's supposed to mean. I mean, but look, I have to say that Kamala is just cringe personified. She literally, in the first clip you showed, put on a fake black accent that she does not have, talking about, I've been out in these streets. She doesn't speak like that. She went to elite academies growing up. She doesn't have that urban dialect whatsoever. It's totally inauthentic. How is that not deeply offensive to pander to black people and adopt a fake accent when you're speaking to black entertainment television? Like, I obviously am not black. I can't speak for them. I would find that very reductive and offensive if I was, though. And it's just, she is a terrible politician. We know this. And unfortunately, and I know this is going to be controversial to say or whatever, but when the Biden campaign was picking a vice president and they picked Kamala Harris in 2020, they weren't picking who they thought would be the best backup president. They weren't thinking who'd be best on the campaign trail. They were thinking about who would check the identity politics, diversity boxes of a black woman that they needed, because it's already problematic enough, among the woke identity politics Democratic base, to be running a white man, a white straight man as your candidate. Okay, well, we have to have some diversity and equity in our VP slot. So what they did, we all know this. I'm just being real with you. If she was a white male senator from California who'd never won an election outside of a deep blue state, there's no way he would have picked her as vice president. So what we have is somebody who was put in the job for reasons unrelated to merit and competency, who might be thrust into the limelight, and she hasn't done well when put in the limelight as vice president in the past. Even there's been reports that within the Biden White House, they're really disappointed in her and think she's done a poor job and try to keep her away from the important events and cameras. So look, it's not a great situation either way for the Democrats. They either have a guy who doesn't know where he is and looks addled and confused at random times, or they have someone who's clearly not up for the job, isn't a very good politician, and has just a lot of weird, cringeworthy things that she says, and has never actually won an election in her own right at the top of a ticket in any sort of swing state or battleground, or she has no appeal outside of liberal elites, which they've already got, but she has no appeal to moderates or independents or Midwest voters or anything like that.
Well said. The Democrats have created this mess, and oh gosh, they've got a lot of work to do if they have any chance between now and November 5. Brad Palumbo, great to get your thoughts. So great to speak with you. Thank you for joining us again on Power Hour.
Thank you.